All right, hey everyone, welcome back to our leadership interview. Today we have Mike Throne with us. A lot of you, I would say almost all of you probably know Mike. He works at the Chillicothe Gazette, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about his role there, but he's also heavily involved in the church. He oversees all the tech booth stuff on Sunday mornings, and is involved in just many different things. He leads life groups. It leads some different teams that are happening here. So Mike's a guy that is heavily involved in leadership, both at his job and here at the church. And so as we talk about developing people, I thought Mike would be a great person to just give us some insight into what that process looks like and why it's so important. So Mike, it's good to have you here, buddy.
Thanks.
Just to kind of start us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do with the Gazette?
Well, right now I'm managing editor for the site that's Chillicothe, but I'm also the regional managing editor over Lancaster, Zanesville, and Coshocton.
Okay.
So I oversee about 8 other people at the Gazette, and then probably in total around 40 when you get everybody else involved. I don't have direct responsibility over those folks, but I have some oversight over what they do, their evaluations, things like that. And I'm actually directly involved with their growth and development in terms of whether they're a reporter or a photographer or one of our editors, things like that. I'm directly responsible for that sort of stuff as well.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about the different people that you oversee. Approximately how many people would you say you hire per year?
I would say with all the sites now, in Chillicothe we've probably hired 3 or 4 in the last year or so, but I think overall probably around 10 or 11. And on average per year, it would be probably, for all of those sites, it would probably be about 8 or 9.
Okay. Now, just to kind of follow up on that, as a sort of small town newspaper, you probably don't get a chance to hire a lot of like people that have been doing this for a long time. They're at the top of their game, right? I mean, you and the New York Times aren't competing for the same.
We're not. No.
For the same.
It seems like it would be true, but not necessarily.
So development then becomes really important. So what's the process for you guys? From you find the right person, which I would guess would be based a lot on potential,
right?
And so you find that person. What's the process by which you move them from where they are to where they could be?
Yeah, and that process starts at hiring.
Yeah.
Because when I hire people, and I got here in '97, and I became managing editor in '98, and then that's when I really got intimately involved in the process. And basically, I was picking my team at that point.
Right.
So when I did that, what I looked for was not only the people that came out of school or came from a smaller newspaper with some talent to begin with. So in other words, they were able to write stories, they had done the job before, or they were coming out of school and they demonstrated some real aptitude at what they were doing. But I also try to look at them for qualities that I would be able to say, okay, that person is a potential editor, that person is a potential, state government reporter for a bigger newspaper, or even working for USA Today. The Gazette had a long track record when I got here of sending people to bigger markets, Phoenix, Cincinnati, USA Today, and all kinds of stuff. So I kind of had that legacy to kind of compete with.
Right.
So I was picking people that down the road were going to stay in the company. And what we looked for, I think, particularly in that was a want to get better and a want to learn every day.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that I've been in this business over 25 years, but I don't look at myself to say, okay, I've got it all figured out, I can't learn anymore. I mean,
Sure.
Especially now with the way that we do things with digital and so on. I'm learning things that I never knew about every day.
Right.
So, I wanted to find those people that really wanted to get better, and doing so by letting somebody walk alongside them and work with them to do that.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So when you're hiring, you're not so much looking at who they are now, you're looking at where they could potentially be 5, 10 years down the road. So within that, as you look at where they are now to where they could be, what steps or what tools do you use to move them from that point to where you see them possibly being?
Well, let me take a step back for a second.
Yeah.
Because when I first started hiring people, it really was a process of, all right, you're a reporter, go report.
Right.
And what I learned from that was some people can do that and they can do it really, really well. Other people need the guidance on where to look, what to do, how to react when things don't go your way. And so what we developed from that was a mentorship program internally to say, all right, you're brand new here. For the first month, we're going to intensely supervise you. And that meant when you do a story, we're going to come in here, we're going to sit down with you and edit the story together so you know what is expected. Leadership is all about communicating standards to people and then upholding the standards. It doesn't do any good to communicate a standard and then just let them fall by the wayside of the first opportunity. So the first month was all about communicating standards and upholding them. Then after that, what we did was, okay, now you've got some aptitude. We're still working with you in those regards because it takes 6 months in some regards for people to really get into a new community and know what's going on. After we did that, then it was more about, okay, let's mentor you in the ways that you can get better. If you're strong at, interview questions, then what else can we help you with? And if you're strong at interview questions and someone's not, can we pair you with them? Yeah. And it was a lot of peer-to-peer mentoring and a lot of, boss to employee mentoring as well, because I think what ends up happening is, you can be a victim of your own success sometimes where I'm really successful at mentoring you, but after a while I'm just tuning out.
Right.
And so we try to make it more about peers telling peers what to do, what to look for, and then just sharing of ideas on what works and what doesn't. And I think from that, then when Gannett kind of formulated its own mentorship program, which was company-wide, and in our group, the Interstate Group, which is all of basically the Midwest states, we have about 30 people that every year go through an intense 12 to 15 week program where I could be mentoring somebody in Cincinnati or someone in Fremont or Lansing, Michigan. And so when we developed that program, we just kind of, said, well, this is our base level. The next step up is to take those people and then mentor them fully.
Yeah, so even a large company like Gannett, which is, the USA Today and countless other large newspapers, they see incredible value in developing people.
Yeah. Well, we have an entire recruiting arm of Gannett. Yeah. And they literally will send me candidates. I mean, some of them live as far away as, California. Yeah. And I always try to figure out why would someone from California come all the way to Chillicothe, even if it was just for an interview. Right. But a great example of that was we just hired a photographer, a part-time position. Okay. 20 hours a week. This person applied from Rhode Island. Wow. And when they applied, I remember saying to Frank Robertson, who's my multimedia editor, was directly involved in the hiring process. I thought, she's never going to come here for what we're going to pay. But it was more important, location was more important to her and a good opportunity was important than it was, all right, let me find out the perfect fit at full time and all this other business. She had interned with the Cincinnati Enquirer, which is one of our sister papers. Loved the experience there, knew Gannett was a good company, and so coming back here for 20 hours a week even was a really good thing. So what ends up happening is we're really interested, and that sort of inquiry came through because she had been connected with the recruiting department. And so what happened was when she saw our opportunity, she said, well, it's not the most perfect fit in the entire world, but I'm willing to go there, cut my teeth, really work hard, do the best that I can for you, with the opportunity to, to hopefully move up at some point in time.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you're looking to promote someone, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I'd never managed people before coming to Chillicothe. Never managed a person in my entire life. I was always managed, but never had been a manager. So I tend to look in that regard as well. So I don't necessarily pick the person that has a lot of managerial experience, but I will pick the person that I think fits what I'm looking for. I try to, what do I need? Who's going to complement me? So I tend to be a little fiery at times and a little bit combative. And, and not in a bad sense, but I just like to challenge things a lot. Sure. So I need somebody that is going to complement me, that sort of talks a little more evenly and will ask a lot of questions to be the devil's advocate sometimes. Yeah. And I have two great people in Chris Belusic and Frank Robertson who are excellent at that. I'll throw out these crazy ideas, and I got a billion of them, and they'll add the reality check
Right,
to it. And
right.
so I think that's, I try to look at people that compliment me, but depending on what I'm hiring for, I also look at the skill set. I would not hire somebody who's great at words to be my multimedia editor, because the odds are they don't have that visual mindset.
Right.
So, and then likewise with digital, if I take somebody that's sort of like a 30-year veteran and put them in a digital job, I mean, that job right now is just changing every day, and it's harder to pick up that
Right.
mindset. So, you try to look for, I mean, in our company, we're starting to hire people that really don't even have the journalism background, that you would think, well, okay, if it's an editor's job, you gotta have 30 years experience, or 20 years experience, or 10 years experience. And some of these people have never managed people before, and they're becoming editors,
Yeah.
because we're going in a digital direction.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're hiring for things with that in mind. So down the road, these people already have a good leg in to what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Give us before we end. Give us one success story, one person that maybe you saw at the beginning of the hiring process and thought, I could see what they could be one day. Give us a story of how you watched someone grow into that.
yeah, I would say one of my best examples of that is I was hiring for the city beat reporter here in Chillicothe, and I had several applicants, but something struck me about this guy's resume and clips. He had a lot of depth to his writing. He dug for facts, things like that, and so I brought him on board. His name is Ben, and he came to us, did great while he was here, held people accountable, did his job every day, came to work, wrote great stories, had a high volume output. And I remember about 6 months after he got there, I remember thinking to myself, it's going to be really difficult to hang on to this guy.
Yeah.
So my impetus at that point was to continue to develop him, but then try to keep him in the company. And I'm, sad to say that failed miserably. He went to a different company and started there. But then 2 years ago, we had an opening at our group office for an editor that oversees a team that writes for all 10 of our newspapers. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, listen, I don't know what you're looking for. I don't know what you're doing right now. I know you've been in Fort Wayne, which is where he was, for quite a while, and it seems like you enjoy it. But we have this job. And, his family all lived in Plain City. And so I thought, let's hit the home peg a little bit.
Right.
You can come back home. You can live in Columbus. You can do what you want to do and have a great opportunity. And I'm happy to say we hired him.
Yeah.
And he's done phenomenally well for us. We've actually brought another member to his team from Chillicothe as well.
Huh.
And so it's really been one of those success stories that you look back on and say, I'm glad we took the time and we invested, even though we, at first it looked like he'll never stay in the company.
Right.
And then he left, and then you think, well, he's never coming back, and then we did get him back.
Yeah.
So it really worked out well.
So and you can tell me if I'm wrong, developing people isn't so much about putting people in a position. It's a lot about giving people the tools they need to fulfill what they're called to do.
Yeah. I remember when my boss was getting ready to leave Chillicothe, and I was the city editor at the time, he was the managing editor, and so he called me into his office and he told me he was leaving. And I said, so any idea who's going to replace you? And he said, yeah, you.
Huh.
And I said, well, what do you mean? I mean, I've only been managing people for a year. And he said, listen, you can do this job. There's a lot that you're going to have to learn, but there was a lot that I had to learn, because, he had only done it for about 2 or 3 years as well. And so I thought, I am not ready for this responsibility. He said, listen, what training we've given you so far will get you through. After that, start getting more training. Find other editors, talk to them. Find people that have been in the company for 20 years and really reach out to them and ask them to mentor you, and they'll be more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ready for that job, and I didn't feel ready for that job. And I always sort of, when I see employees that work for me that first year, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There was a lot of learning to do right there. Don't worry about it. Everybody learned in that process. The great thing about that for me was people said, yeah, you're going to reach out to us, we'll invest in you but we want you to invest in other people as well.
Yeah.
I think that when you do that, you set yourself up for success, because no matter what, you've brought a culture where everybody
Right.
wants to lift everybody up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Mike, this has been really good. I think the thing that I've been struck by just in our few minutes together is, even in a company like Gannett, at a smaller newspaper like like the Gazette, there's just this this need that is recognized to develop people, which is always messier
Yeah.
than just going out and hiring the right person.
Yeah.
But it's also worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it when you see that growth and you see those people step
Absolutely.
into what they're doing. So Mike, thank you so much, guys. I think this has been really valuable, and I hope that you'll be able to take some of these things as we grow into the next season, as First Wesleyan grows into the next season, and we need to raise up all kinds of new leaders. And as you play a large role in that, keep these things in mind. Keep the things that Mike has talked about in mind, and I think it'll be really valuable for you as we move forward. So go ahead and pray, and then go ahead and wrap up the night. Thanks, guys.